Hey everyone, Sam from United People's TV. As you can see, I'm here with Andy Brassell. Thanks for joining me, Andy.
My pleasure.
Oh, so I just wanted to chat to Andy to see, I want to hear your opinions on what's going wrong with Van Gaal. Do the problems stop and lie with him? And where do Man United go from here?
Well, I think the thing to notice about Van Gaal in recent club jobs is it falls apart very quickly. And that was the case at Bayern. I think, you know, you look at the point at which he almost took them to the treble in 2010, and of course they beat United on the way to the Champions League final, didn't they? You know, they were close to the absolute pinnacle. They'd never won the treble at that point, and less than a year later, he'd completely lost the dressing room and was out of a job. I think the point at which Van Gaal is in his career is very important. The fact that, you know, he is very close to retiring by his own admission.
64, 65 now?
Yeah, that's right. And you know, he only ever thought he would see it to the end of this contract, which is now halfway through. I think there's a sense that time is catching up with him a little. And I think if you look down the history of great managers, and there's no doubt that he has been a great manager in the modern game, a great coach in the modern game. You know, everyone has a limited time of ultimate success. I think maybe you're seeing that with Jose Mourinho now, which, you know, maybe is something that's worrying for Manchester United fans if that's going to be the future as well. But I just think there's the sense that his methods are on the turn. You know, he's someone who has flourished with very attacking football down the years, and you know the constituent bits are still there. The fact that they keep the ball, that they use the full width of the pitch, but it's just not creating the chances that it should do. And I think that's something that probably frustrates and baffles him a little bit. And I think another thing to notice is when we talk about the passing of time is how the game has changed. That how he's worked very well with young players in the past. But young players now are different to young players 10 years ago. I mean, if you look at the way Anthony Martial has fitted in, it's a bit freakish actually. The fact that, you know, he's come in for a possible fee of, like, you know, up to £60 million eventually, and he's been fine. You know, he's been fine with the pressure. That's not normal. That's really not normal.
There's not many 19-year-olds who are married with 2 kids as well at the same time.
That's true. Eden Hazard was one actually, but I think that the fact that, you know, you're looking at a new breed of young footballer who you know, views their career in a different way, who is, you know, a lot more media savvy, who can deal with pressure really well. I mean, you could say Martial is to an extent a freak of nature, and hopefully from a United perspective, he will prove that over the next 10 years or so. But I think moulding young players to your very rigid structure, which has always been Van Gaal's speciality, is a lot more difficult to do with a young player like that.
So you feel they've changed? I wanted to draw back to a point you made a couple of minutes ago. What happened to Van Gaal between nearly winning the treble and then it all collapsing a year later? Can you see parallels between what's happening now at United?
Yes.
Is it a repeating mistakes that's going on again?
To an extent, but it's a long time ago. Even though that was back in 2010, it doesn't seem a long time ago. The football that Bayern played that year that they got to the Champions League final and lost to Inter when they could have won the treble, it was exciting to the point of being careless. I mean, you know, you remember that game at Old Trafford where they came back when United were 3-0 up.
Robin scored the volley.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, they were just so slipshod, especially in their away games, and they found a way to come back with really reckless attacking football. And you know, I think there was a hint that while Van Gaal was in charge of the Netherlands last time, and having failed with them the first time, he really did a great job of regenerating them. But he reached a point where it's sort of, he thought, I've got to find out a different way of playing. So, you know, he brought in the 5 at the back and playing with wing backs. You know, very, very close to the World Cup, and arguably it left the Netherlands in this sort of spot where, you know, they failed to qualify for the Euros because they came away from that very a very well-versed 4-3-3, typically Dutch idea, to something, he wanted to play with 2 up front and preserve the width, essentially. But it left them with a sort of identity crisis. I wonder if it's left him with a bit of an identity crisis as well.
Well, he started off with 5-3-2 at United as well.
Exactly. And straight away, it looked as if, it was almost a parody of Van Gaal, that he was sort of, he became so inflexible by trying to fit the players into that system that immediately it created that doubt, and that doubt has sort of grown over time.
I mean, if you look at United and the way we've been playing football, it has been extremely, extremely rigid, but it reached a point, I think it was probably the Newcastle game where it turned, where you just thought, you know what, sod this. Whether it was his direction or anything, but United in that 3-3 game were playing some slick attacking football, and his philosophies of possession, patience, seemed to be chucked out the window and said, let's just go gung-ho. Didn't really work out. We conceded a last-minute equaliser, but you didn't have any angry fans coming out of that stadium. You had frustrated fans. Well, we just gave away 2 points at the end of the game, but we played attacking football. We may have conceded 3, but we scored 3.
It's what you expect from United, isn't it? It was the first time really that I think the reason it recalled Rooney at his best, I think, is because of the way they scored those goals on the counter.
Yeah.
It's something that recalls, if you go back to the ultimate Manchester United counter-attack goal between Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney against Bolton all those years ago, and that is prime United.
What you're talking about, how maybe Van Gaal, almost a parody of himself towards the start of his United career, in that he's lost his identity. What do you feel is the problem at United right now? Because me personally, I think Van Gaal, yes, he's a problem, but there's much, much bigger problems at United that aren't going to disappear when Van Gaal's replaced.
There is. The buck can't stop with him, and that's absolutely right. I think we still have it in our brains in England that the manager is the manager rather than the head coach. That he's this guy who picks the players, buys the players, sets the football philosophy, and that's too much. That's too much for any one man to do now. And I think the thing that has put so much strain on Van Gaal and worn him down and set him up to fail to a certain extent is, where's the football management structure around him? It's basically him and Woodward. And I think that's a huge problem. In a way, Van Gaal is a great asset because he's a guy who's been there, done it and won it. So he's someone who can convince players to come, convince them, especially young players, that they're going to improve, that they're going to improve into world-class players, and his record shows that. But I think he's been put in a difficult spot because he hasn't got a management structure that he can trust, that can get him the right players, in a reasonable timescale, and that's a problem.
Do United need a director of football?
Yes. Absolutely, yes. I think every club needs a director of football.
Because the thing from a fan's perspective, we're looking at this, Ed Woodward is a fantastic businessman. We're not taking that away from him. But
we're talking about commercial and football.
Yeah.
Those are two completely different arms, aren't they?
But it's so strange that a club of United's size and stature has just merged those two and expected it to just translate and work seamlessly. It's madness. And from me personally, yes, I'm frustrated and angry with Van Gaal. But my main finger is pointing at Woodward. And if you look at United over the last 2-3 years in the transfer windows, we've been chasing Muller, we've been chasing Bale, we've been chasing the tails of unattainable players, which has wasted a lot of our time.
And in fact, you know what, if you go back to the point where they were trying to sign Fabregas when he was clearly unavailable, I mean, it's not something that's happened just in the last year or so, is it?
No, it's very strange. And I suppose the main thing I want to ask you is, how do you think United move on from here? What is the next step? Is it Van Gaal going and Giggs coming in, or is it, where do we go from here?
I think it's a whole new football management structure. I think that needs to be the way to go forward, and it's something that, say, I think City have put in place over a number of years. I think it's a problem that not only United face, but Arsenal face. The fact that, the idea that you could get rid of Van Gaal or get rid of Wenger and replace them with Guardiola and everything would be fine. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. The conditions are not there for them to work. I mean, it's something that Guardiola, who's obviously been mentioned in connection with the United job, even though it doesn't look like he'll go there, this is something that wore him out at Barcelona. I remember like in his last game for Barcelona in the Copa del Rey final when they're playing Athletic Bilbao, my wife saying to me, "Is that old guy on the touchline? He looks a bit like Pep Guardiola." And you know, that's the thing. He got totally Tony Blaired. He's worn out, and I think Van Gaal looks worn out, and I think that's really an effect of the lack of football management support behind him. I think it's extremely problematic to appoint a director of football above an existing manager. I think you need to get that management structure in place and then pick your manager to suit that.
Do you feel
to suit the club philosophy?
Do you feel that's a situation that United are now in the position to achieve?
I think that's what they have to do, because I think like the extent of the transfer failure is such that, you know, you can say, oh well, you know, United's the ultimate like football commercial operation, and you know, makes so much money. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, that only continues to exist as long as the club gets it right on the pitch and is successful. Yeah. You know, I think the Di Maria deal was a huge red flag for me. You know, the fact that you get this guy in, fair enough, they overpaid for him, but Premier League clubs overpay for players. Get over it. Yeah. I think once you've got him in, to put him in a situation where he gets moved about all over the place, and that is a Van Gaal thing. Yeah. That is a Van Gaal thing. And then let him go for such a loss. I mean, you can't repeat mistakes like that again and again and again. And I think Van Gaal's given too much responsibility in that situation. Like, fair enough, if it doesn't work out with an individual player, that's one thing. But you know, you need some sort of consensus. I think between a number of people. I'm not talking about the Liverpool transfer committee, but a sense that this is a player for our club. This is a player for our philosophy. Of course, with United, there's the extra angle, like there would be for Real Madrid, of this is a player who's commercially important, and that's where Ed Woodward comes in. I don't think he should have no input, but it shouldn't be so much on him.
No, let's to summarise here. Where do you see United going in the next 3 months? Are we sticking with Van Gaal, or do you think we are going to see a change in the next few weeks of Van Gaal coming in, maybe Giggs on an interim basis?
I can see Giggs taking over on an interim basis until the end of the season. Like I said, I think Van Gaal is just so worn out, and if they need to get into the Champions League places, there just needs to be a little bump to get them over the line. I don't think it's the long-term solution, and I think it's asking far too much of Giggs to ask him to take the job long-term, especially without that support network. Yeah. I just think there needs to be a complete rethink, because getting transfers right is not the be-all and end-all, but it's the start of getting it right on the pitch, and it's the start of bringing back the old United. And I know people say, "Oh, well, Sir Alex Ferguson's gone." The fact is, United still have a certain tradition, a certain image to live up to. That's part of their commercial appeal. The fact of that daring, that excitement, that's all part of it.
But I mean, that value's been sort of degrading ever since the Glazers came in. It's just it's reached a crescendo. Now the Fergie era is gone, and he was the super glue keeping it all together.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's been all the bits slowly come away, and we're peeling back like an onion. So now we're seeing the rotten core, which has really been bubbling under the surface for a long time. There's been always anti-Glazer feeling around it, but if you look at the 15 people in charge of who is in Man United's manager, there's commercial directors, there's a Glazers family, there's people who know, the majority of them are unrelated to football, and that's the biggest problem I think at United right now, is a football club being run purely as a business, and that transition and merging it across the football and the pit is really now.
But that's fine if you've got a good football management structure, but if you haven't, it's not.
If you haven't, you've reached the point that United are right now. That's it. Thank you very much, Andy, for
Pleasure.
a chat. Hopefully, we do see some progress with United this season, whether that is under Louis van Gaal or under Ryan Giggs, as Andy may feel it's going to be. Let me know in the comments below whether you think another gigs on an interim basis for the second time in 3 years is going to happen for maybe a little bit longer than 4 games. Also, we've got a competition. Everyone loves competitions, right? You can win a free United shirt. All you've got to do is head over to the Ball Street YouTube channel where we're holding a competition. All you've got to do is comment on there with your top 3 Premier League players this season. I would love to say that a Man United player is going to be in there. Maybe David De Gea. Probably the only one who can sneak in there, really. I'd love to argue other people, but I can't really. Just make sure you go over there, subscribe to the Ball Street channel, and leave yours in the comment below. And make sure you said that United People's TV sent you. And you could be winning a Man United shirt. What more could you want? Apart from maybe finishing in the top 4 and having a new manager. But that's separate. That's it for today. Like the video. Always helps us, guys. Subscribe to United People's TV as well. And make sure you subscribe to Ball Street. Take it easy.
Over to the Ball Street YouTube channel, subscribe and check out Deadline Day on the 1st of February this year. It's going to be the biggest Deadline Day party in the history of YouTube, the history of the world, the history of football.